And I will also put up a poll that says this. Cool. So I figured we'd just do kind of a quicker live stream today. I'm going to pull up comments and chat. And yeah, just kind of cover some of the stuff that's been going on, news stories in the news. News stories in the news. And what else? I think that'll be about it. Let's see. Yeah. And so just like we talked about a little bit yesterday, the most pressing story, there are some updates on Trump's meeting in Alaska with Vladimir Putin. So obviously it's, maybe not obviously, but it is a big deal, considering that two presidents of two superpowers are meeting on U.S. soil. It's specifically about sort of a wartime meeting, and so it's a little bit different than conversations that maybe have happened in the past over the phone. Donald Trump signaled that he wants to find a solution to Ukraine. He recently released the $50 million bounty on Venezuela's President Maduro. And so that's significant because, Venezuela utilizes Russia for both, I think, some drilling as well as refinement a little bit. Venezuela is one of Russia's partners in the West, kind of accelerating Venezuela's ability to generate revenue. And for Russia, it's like, well, if we already have our ability to generate energy, we can maybe gain a little leverage on energy cartels in general. Hey, happy birthday, Rajesh. Happy birthday. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate you. Happy birthday to you. And so, so with the Venezuela move, it may be the case that Donald Trump is signaling to Vladimir Putin that, we're willing to sort of amplify or reduce aggressions, somewhere in that topology, when we're thinking about a solution that's amenable to both sides. Hey, what's up, Zach? What's up? Yeah, and feel free to say hi in the comments. We may do some comments chat, whether it's debate or Q&A stuff in a little bit. I put two stories in the title, so I kind of want to just do those. But so with this Russia-Alaska meeting, just kind of framing this, saying that, Russian state projects with other countries are maybe one of the topics that the U.S. has been thinking about, sort of understanding where that fits in the larger scheme of things. That's been an issue for Russia. It's sort of weird to think that, Russia has been using another country for leverage is a very U.S. first sort of myopic, egotistical view of that. And it's also the case that, it looks like the U.S. is, for some reasons we outlined on our last stream, willing to then go after a country like Venezuela, maybe think about sort of the speed and severity by which we interact with Venezuela in order to, put pressure on Russia. So welcome to geopolitics a little bit. We're obviously oversimplifying things quite a bit, but yeah. And so the big update in the Alaska meeting was Donald Trump said that it sounded like he was saying he's not willing to negotiate land with Russia. He's not willing to negotiate a land deal that would change the borders, in Russia. And this is a story that was, I think, published today, just today. Yeah, this story was published first thing this morning. It says Putin praises Trump's energetic and sincere peace efforts ahead of Alaska summit. So the Russian leader suggested Thursday that a deal on nuclear arms control could also be part of talks that are expected to focus on ending the war in Ukraine. So this is nice, very foundational. I was talking about this in a Discord the other night. When you think about efforts that are possible to reduce the probability that a war would happen. One of the things that does, the two things that could really lead a country like the United States and a country like Russia to go to war is one, the sort of political climate gets so bad domestically that it becomes more viable to start thinking about a conflict. Some people might say that, the U.S. response in Afghanistan and Iraq, this was partially driven by the fact that Americans found a war not just tolerable but desirable, and perhaps for reasons that had very little to do with Afghanistan and Iraq. Maybe not nothing, right? There are coherent conversations that could happen, but very little to do with Afghanistan and Iraq. And so the second issue, if we zoom in on what President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, is saying here, Russian leader suggested on Thursday that a nuclear deal on a deal on nuclear arms could also be part of talks that are expected to focus on ending the war in Ukraine. And so maybe the most tangible sort of signal here is that if Vladimir Putin's being direct and honest, saying, "Hey, we're meeting in sort of shared territory, right? We're meeting in Alaska." Is saying that, yeah, if we can talk about nuclear weapons, right, we can talk about the biggest sort of baddest thing that we can think about. We're also able to consider how our aggregate sort of offensive, aggressive pressures are working against each other, right? I can't really do too much with nuclear arms. It's not politically viable. There's nothing demonstrable that makes this sort of a worthwhile conversation if we're not having a broader geopolitical discussion about the ways we interact with each other. So Russia is still part of that world stage in a significant way. Sanctions don't stop that. You're forced to respond in Venezuela, this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, not really a chess move, just saying that, I think the very optimistic way of approaching this meeting is that Vladimir Putin is willing to have serious conversations, grave talks. This may be saying that he also sees a reason or a possible world where the war in Ukraine isn't the most desirable for Russia. My nuclear arms help me with chores. Yeah, let's go. Nobody wants to work with the U.S. anymore. Good point. I don't know if that's true, but we talked about that a little bit yesterday, Ray. I think a little bit. I don't think, and that's what this other story is kind of funny about. The Gavin Newsom stuff, but yeah. A day ahead of the summit, Putin convened a meeting of advisors to inform them about how the negotiating process of the Ukrainian crisis is going, the Kremlin said in a readout translated by NBC News. Okay. Russian leaders said the Trump administration is making quite energetic and sincere efforts to stop the fighting, to stop the crisis, and reach agreements that are of interest to all parties involved in this conflict. Hey, what's up, Christopher? Good to see you. Nice comment, bro. Great comment. Yeah. And so the Russian leaders said the Trump administration is making quite energetic and sincere efforts to stop the fighting, stop the crisis, and reach agreements that are of interest to all parties involved in the conflict. And so Vladimir Putin may be signaling a little bit that, we've mapped out, we've tracked out the ways in which, if our conversation and negotiation gets this far, right? I want to project strength, but I also, we have to have an honest conversation. And so we do have a Russian first perspective that these are the costs of actually continuing a war in Ukraine, right? when we think about all of Russia's forces sort of arranged in this way, when we think of the cost of Russia taking Ukrainian lives, we can consider that there's this side to it. We have to, maybe on the nation state level, the Russian Federation sees, like one possible narrative is the Russian Federation sees, 2 decades of extreme economic aggression, of increasing perhaps what they see as unilateral military tension. And so this doesn't resolve issues that are perhaps outside of what might be Vladimir Putin's perspective. But it's working that way. Has everyone realized that when Trump won, we dodged the next pandemic, donkeypox? Hey, thanks, Dwayne. That's a nice comment. I don't know what it means, but yeah, if you want to clarify what that is actually about, let me know. Appreciate you commenting and being here, though. Of course, appreciate you being here. And so those efforts are intended to create long-term conditions of peace. So yeah, this is one of those opportunities. Again, guys, I'm all about, I'm all about making that politics money, right? Snap, snap, snap. Great time in the world to, if our presidents are telling us to think long-term, even if you didn't vote for Trump, even if you think Vladimir Putin is a sort of, extreme regime autocrat, an extremist in some senses, you can say, well, if he's talking about creating a long-term condition of peace, who would be involved in this? Who would be involved in this? What are the issues that sort of penetrate our daily lives around this sort of topic or issue? And the world as a whole, and added particularly that if negotiations are extended to cover strategic offensive weapons treaties. Yeah, and so the United States has a ton of private military contractors. This is interesting, right? This is sort of the middle of the road. We have Lockheed Martin, Raytheon. It's a long list. If you look up U.S. defense contractors, you'll be like, oh, I've heard that name before. And so Russia has state-owned companies as well as private companies that do the same thing. They make new ballistic missiles. They make new planes. And so, yeah, it's not that like huge part of a society. Depending where you are in the US or Russia, you might think that like, oh, if I drive 4 hours or 5 hours, I would arrive at some sort of like, meaningless but not purposeless military base or something. And yeah, when I turn on CNN once or twice a year, when I turn on Fox News once or twice a year, we'll hear about some new contract. It'll be on Fox Business or something, MSNBC Money, all this stuff. And so, yeah, strategic offensive weapons treaties have this geopolitical context about who builds them, who buys them, for how much, when, why, who do they sell them to, where are they allowed to have them, what's, how often, or what does like sort of like war game scenario and communication and peacetime look like around some of this stuff. So if you're really interested in that stuff, Vladimir Putin saying that Russia is willing to long-term consider some of that stuff. And yeah, from the U.S. perspective, it's kind of weird because you have stupid countries, not stupid, but you've got like small countries like Belgium or whoever, all these, Israel, a bunch of countries, and the U.S. of course, that makes like a lot of small arms. And we still see that countries like the UK depend on Western capitalism. UK, the United States, a lot of places depend on Western technology for some of those more strategic capabilities. Picking through politicians is like picking fly poop out of pepper. Picking fly poop out of pepper. I don't know what that means. Do I think MP asks, do you think anything will come out of the meeting tomorrow? Yeah, it's difficult to say. I think, I'm trying to sort of think small, and I think President Trump, in this case, is capable of creating sort of what looks like a deal. But I also think that, like, it's difficult. I have lost faith. I don't have faith that President Donald Trump is capable of conducting meaningful diplomacy. And it's really painful to say that, because if you're Vladimir Putin, if you're a foreign leader, head of state, and you hear that, you know, like, obviously the conversation's a little more complex, but if that is the case, then there's not a discussion to be had, right? And yet we're seeing this meeting. You know, I think a long-term commitment, as well as sort of shorter-term blocks that are driving towards large-scale change in U.S. and European energy policies, as well as some more understandability and predictability, you know, with sort of, you know, the pace at which, you know, acceleration in geopolitics and stuff. And you can think that this sort of means that, you know, we're expecting nations like China and the United States, a lot of places, to do more. We're expecting, you know, like economic stagnation in North Africa, or some ambiguity between sort of ideologies in Latin America. These things mean a lot more. These things mean a lot more as we move into the future, because we're operating in scarcity. And so it's actually a really hard question. Do I think anything will come of the meeting tomorrow? I hope that we can reach a deal that actually ends the fighting, ends the war, and starts getting diplomatic agendas focused on producing a global order of peace, and a global order that has some focus and commitment, right? Going towards sort of those small things, right? We want to be able to like really deeply focus on things that solve everyday problems and build stable systems, build stable relationships between states. It's not a rambling answer, right? It's a very direct answer, is that, you know, like I said in the beginning, you know, what we need to be able to do is figure out how we're walking along that chicken wire, along the razor wire, and we're able to do those things together, and we're able to convert those into larger global movements, I think. And I think it's because democratically people want those things. I think democratically, based on identity, people want all those things. So, and yeah, so I would say that is significant. Whether or not we see a peace deal, whether or not we see a treaty, whether or not we see anything, there will be I think, a mutual understanding that emerges. Next to nothing, see what Putin wants. I don't know what that means. Hey, Ricky, I'm just going to go ahead and send you away for 24 hours. If you don't want to be here, feel free to subscribe, but you can come back in 24 hours, buddy. Yeah, no, be 10% more coherent in the comments, my friends. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, I'd rather have you guys ramble like me and say nothing than say something that literally will never mean anything in any possible world, if that doesn't make sense. So, yeah. And so depending on your perspective, either the top or the bottom, either the top of the pyramid or the base of the pyramid, is considering, you know, offensive weapons treaties, but also that nuclear non-proliferation component. Yeah, you know, we don't need to touch on it that much more, but you know, Donald Trump said recently, you know, at one point he said there will be a land deal, and then he went back and said, you know, we're not going to consider a land deal. After making this was either before or after he had met with President Zelensky. And so I don't think there's a problem, right? You know, this is maybe, if you're actually being rational and you're not this sort of unpredictable actor like Donald Trump, you know, so zoom out. And so, you know, just to frame this, you have Donald Trump saying, oh, we're going to make the best deal in the world. Everybody's going to be talking about it. Look at the size of my hands, you know, look at the size of my feet, you know, my whatever, you know, we're going to do the best deal in the world, folks. And this is before he had spoken to Vladimir Zelensky recently. So maybe he didn't know what Vladimir Zelensky knew. Maybe he knew what Donald Trump knew. Maybe he was part of the way briefed on what advisors in the US government knew. This would be like a rational interpretation of sort of how this happened. Who actually knows what Donald Trump's talking about? I don't know. Maybe it's president stuff. I don't think it is. And then so after this real estate mogul then meets with Vladimir Zelensky, what do you get next? Well, the next thing you get is Donald Trump saying, "Oh, there's not going to be a land deal, but we're gonna make sure it's a good deal for everybody," or something like this. We're willing to play hardball for these guys. So some kind of weird smoke and mirrors, which is kind of like telling an iceberg, like if I'm walking around with like one of those like blow torches they used to make creme brulee, and I'm telling an iceberg, which is Russia, it's like, well, I'm going to get all of you. Don't worry, I'll get the most important parts, but we're going to get all of you with this. And so this is a little bit of just Vladimir Putin. Maybe he is a horrible authoritarian, autocratic sort of bad guy leader, but this is part of his experience. Right? Part of this experience is just repositioning conversation about maybe Russian interests a little bit, So, leading from innovation and leading from new things has not always been a Russian strong suit. And so what is that conversation actually like? Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it has been the case that, Russia has success stories about this stuff, right? I don't think so, but do you think Newsom will help California? I think Newsom's going to redistrict California from iCrawdad. Yeah. I think Newsom's going to redistrict California. I think this is one of the biggest trolls in democracy that we've ever seen. That was, by the way, for everyone who voted on the poll, like the video, that was a little Newsom joke, a little Gavin Newsom in the news joke. Alaska first. I like this vote. 47% of you. So we should have 15 likes on the video, 16 likes on the video, by the way, about that. Said more Newsom. 55% said we need to see this Alaska. I'm so stressed. I've got no way to manage these complex emotions. There's not much else I can do here, Yeah, I'm worried about the people in Ukraine. I'm worried about the worst off people in Russia. I'm worried about the worst off people in the United States. And I'm also worried about these crazy people that are making decisions with some of the largest militaries on Earth that are deploying resources and intelligence and signals, all kinds of stuff. They're building this sort of national platform. They're reinforcing national identity around this idea that we can decide to go to war. So 55% of you are with me that is a crazy idea. You guys don't need to like the video. You don't need to double tap that screen and hit that white subscribe button at the top. That helps me, but that doesn't do anything for Russia, Ukraine, and this Alaska meeting. It does nothing for it. Yeah, it was a little bit of a joke. I don't know, Norm. Not that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It was supposed to be funny. I think it was alongside this other conversation. So, yeah, and so Gavin Newsom is striking back. So we have, maybe the most what is it? Is that a word? Prescient. In the zeitgeist is this Russia-Ukraine conflict. Neoteric. Neoteric is a cool word. Very contemporary. Current. The latest. Immediate. Yeah. So yeah, and the sort of most pressing story is Russia. But then we also have on the bottom rungs of democracy, this question about these two massive influential states, Texas and California, redistricting. And after Texas assembled Republican lawmakers to make a big horse and pony show out of it, their attorney general was looped into it. Trump out of Washington is walking a party line. some people would say that he is a ringleader off in left field, or he is the ringleader, whatever you want to say. I don't know. But, Donald Trump is walking this party line when he spends his time on this redistricting, Republican control of the House and Senate issue. And so you have Texas AG come out and all this other stuff. No politician is a good man or statesman. A good politician being capable of at least leading through sort of, a 2-week period or something like that. You got to be able to do that at least a little bit, have the full picture of things, and also have a little more depth to the way that you can approach a topic. I'd appreciate if Washington could do that for us. And so, as a response to all the stuff in Texas, which is really probably saying what some Texans want, maybe the most hardline Republicans saying, we're sick of competition. We don't want to have debates. We don't want to have discussions. We don't want to be called a purple state. We don't want to have purple districts. We want to be Republican. And the response to this is, the people above you who aren't telling you can win, they're saying that they have an agenda that might be influenced by special interests. It may be influenced by just really strict party politics, political elites in the Republican side of things. All these reasons are reasons why, California has to be able to respond. And that's what Gavin Newsom is doing by trolling Donald Trump. Yeah, Mike, Joe is, if that's Joe Biden, I do believe Joe Biden would be able to sort of at least usher and see what was possible. Hopefully some commitment to reducing this sort of strict partisan politics in the United States. Yeah. All kinds of stuff. We're in 1984, maybe. Hey, thank you, Maudine. I wouldn't call myself, sorry if I'm saying your name incorrect, but I wouldn't say I'm that intelligent or knowledgeable. I'm just having coffee. Coffee is intelligent and knowledgeable. A little classic Americana, folks. A little classic Americana. Yeah, and so Gavin Newsom's troll, I think, is a troll on democracy. Gavin Newsom's troll is trolling democracy and saying, look, okay, I even have this. We'll bring out Donald Trump's sort of autobiographic political strategy book. If you guys can see this here. This book is called Great Again. It was the book that he published, Donald Trump published, maybe had a ghostwriter for, whatever. It's Donald Trump's words, and it was published in 2015, so a year before his first term as president, year before POTUS. And so Gavin Newsom's kind of saying, well, look, if this MAGA movement is so capable of generating so much momentum and tension, it's capable of recontextualizing and reframing and reorganizing conservative talking points, conservative media, conservative voters, and then therefore conservative politics and policy. Gavin Newsom is kind of saying, well, that's a crazy idea in the first place, right? I don't need Sean Hannity. I don't need Megyn Kelly. I don't need some of these top pundits in the United States. Building a narrative around what a bumper sticker slogan is capable of. That's not what that's about, right? If you want to talk about making America great again, doing all caps posts, talking about, Hillary and this group of people, without having any context for people. And you're saying that this idea that you can basically have a tweet structure and a communication style, and it's going to reframe American politics, that's incorrect. That is not correct. These tactical ideas are supposed to be more short-lived. And so what does this say? Hey, what's up, Mandingo? Good to see you. Please keep the booty talk, guys. Booty talk, hiney talk, all that stuff. So as talk, we're going to keep all of that to a minimum, my friends. I appreciate you. I've seen worse words typed out in chat. I will be completely honest. And so just one dab for for not being as inappropriate as possible. Yeah, if you want to subscribe and come back and have a conversation later, and come back in 30 minutes or so, buddy. What's up, Imran? Yeah, and so this Make America Great narrative, and Gavin Newsom saying, well, I can capture most of this, right? I get what you're saying is that, you want to reframe all of the United States because you can write a book. Basically you can build a political company, and wherever that company takes you, you're having a go at it. And Gavin Newsom saying, well, what California might have is, more years of democratic history, more belief and trust that people are these rational decision makers, these rational actors and stuff like that. And in honesty, what Gavin Newsom might be thinking about is that, well, people love a good joke. People love a good joke. People love a good winner. People love, if they believe in the idea even a little bit, they love seeing someone that's dedicated to winning. And they love seeing someone that maybe isn't so committed to winning that they are willing to give away their entire identity and give away other people's identity in order to go win. And so in light of the geopolitical stage, perhaps, where it is in some ways very clear what the United States is capable of, what the United States wants to be able to believe in and go out and pursue in the world, and what we do pursue in the world. And in some ways, it's also ambiguous what's actually good for the United States, and maybe more so how those good things for the United States are good for other people, the ways in which we're more similar than we are different. And so when you contextualize this redistricting event, we see why Gavin Newsom is such a strong political leader. And from my partisan opinion on this, not my objective opinion, not my sort of deep analytical opinion, but my partisan opinion on Gavin Newsom's trolling tweets is hilarious. It is hilarious, and it's actually very sharp, and it's a little more humble. It's not this narcissistic view that I will sell 10 million copies of this. I will get 10 million people into options trading. I'll get 10 million people into real estate investing. I will just give everything to everybody all at once, or I will take credit for that. And I will do this all for short-term benefits and short-term gains. I'm not going to sort of think long-term about the actual practical implications of whatever this is about. Hey, what's up? We got Cam Flynn in chat. And so just also shout out to regular Duck subscribers. We've been a little more busy on the channel recently. If you guys want to subscribe, cool. Good to see you. I might start doing like some more evening streams to see if it's more chilled out, or doing PC style streams or something like that. The sort of horizontal, not mobile. So just want to shout out people that, if you've been with the channel for a little bit, I appreciate you. Even if I'm not saying what's up to everybody right this second. I do remember, I think, so I appreciate it. Maybe we can break off and do less sort of political talk or something like that. If you guys want to do that, I'm down. But yeah. Hate is hate. Yeah, I think what Gavin Newsom's doing is saying that, democracy is capable of being changed by pointing out an absurdity and having people realize why that's absurd. Is that, you can't forever just give policy dictates and orders and not actually ask why big complex systems evolved and emerged in the first place. Yeah, we're going ham. We're going ham right now, Beto. It's kind of crazy. Not gonna lie. Gavin is a greasy used car salesman. He's hilarious, though. He's hilarious. I'm loving it. Oh, it's one of the most beautiful things that you've ever seen in the world. One of the best things you've ever seen in the world. All caps, folks. This is interesting. I was reading through the Federalists again yesterday. Federalists 51 and so Federalists 51 through 58 talk about the House of Representatives. So very reputable documents. In some ways, when you think of like AOC and these reps in California and stuff like that, it's like, well, that's your job description in Federalist 51. Yeah, all of you, I don't care if you're new or an old elected representative, Federalist 51 through 58. I don't even care if you're a senator. I don't actually care if you're a judge or like a comptroller. You should read 51 through 58 of the Federalist, because that is your job description. What do you do here? It's Federalist 51 through 58. And a couple of the things that are important, there's three things that are most important. First is Alexander Hamilton and James Madison talk about voting. So you vote, right? Even if your candidate, your guy, your gal, the person you elect, the person who's supposed to be in Washington and working locally for you, you vote for that person. And whether you win or lose, whether they win or lose, they're supposed to be an elected representative and sort of appreciate that. The second thing is they talk about having these ingratuitous people, right? Huge debate. You can picture it in the year 17 or 1800. You can picture it in the year 2025, whatever it is, but yeah, people are always concerned. You can picture it in the year 1600. People are concerned that you're going to elect a person to power and they're not actually going to care about you. It's going to be just like it always is, where someone's in power, someone has all the things they want and need, and then no one else does. And so the House of Representatives is talking about this function that is like, it's talking about this function where, you're not supposed to, what you get out of this is a very weak House of Representatives. You're not supposed to have politicians that want to do too much. You're not supposed to have too much ambition. You're supposed to understand sort of the limitations of the job in a little bit, in some ways. It's not saying that ambition doesn't exist. It's not saying that you don't have special interests ever. It's just saying that the way we manage this is by structuring the House of Representatives in this way that they're accountable to their population. So are your representatives visiting ICE detention centers? Are they talking to leaders in education like superintendents, school principals, and teachers? Are they asking where parents take their kids when they have to go to work? Are they asking about how important and how pressing, those types of issues versus something like food are? Are they talking about how global political issues or the national agenda set up by Donald Trump or by Democrats like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are impacting people in their day-to-day? If your representatives aren't actually going out and have never had that conversation for actuals, they're not doing their job. You voted for them and then they're not doing their job. And so I think it's right for Gavin Newsom. This is reason number two. So reason number one, Gavin Newsom's troll is very funny, is because MAGA isn't a political party. It's not a way of life. It's not a decision. It's not a philosophy. It's a bumper sticker. And pretending like it's more than it is doesn't change the fact that it isn't that thing. And so Gavin Newsom's troll is funny because of that. Gavin Newsom's troll is funny because what the Congress is supposed to be is a representative government, which means something specific. And so it's funny. It's funny when, if you're forced to put more Democrats in office and you can say better than Republicans, well, our guys can go do their job, or we'll think about that. Our people on both sides can go do their job better. That's also a great thing. That's also a great thing. It adds complexity and a layer to that onion that we didn't have before, folks. Oh, Javier. You think lazy liberals. So, Javier, this is what I would teach you about the Progressive Party, is that progressives don't need to be doing too much every year, right? If you are bringing a sort of new spin or a twist and educating people about access to social safety nets like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, unemployment, and labor protections like minimum wage, you're doing enough, right? You're allowed to be a lazy progressive, a lazy liberal. You don't have to be out there fighting that good fight every year. You should be going and doing different things, right? That's what a really good functioning government looks like. And so lying to people and having this weird phenomenon where people are eager to be lied to, not actually knowing what's going on around you, who knows, right? And so this is where like democracy matters a lot, because maybe it is relevant that I heard the Trump family's made $3.4 billion on cryptocurrency. Maybe that is important, but maybe even in the larger scheme of things, $3.4 billion, it's like, okay, you guys, if you guys wanted to make money, you made money, so take it. But $3.4 billion is a lot smaller in the context of totally trying to transform the political landscape. You're not actually going to take away the issues people care about. So Javier, I think you got to go back to school, my friend. Javier, sí o no? Hey, thanks, Grumpy Bufo. Appreciate you. Just a heads up, my dude, you need to adjust your mic because your sniffs are louder than your words. True. True. Yeah. Let's do that. Bop, bop. All humans need to go back to school? Absolutely, right? I know I'm super biased. My aunt and my sister-in-law were both educators, my brother-in-law. Lots of people in my family and stuff are in education. So, So yeah, I think it's interesting. It's really complex to actually think about the song and dance, which is recruiting, retraining, retaining sort of educators in school, building that sort of alliance between teachers and parents, and then understanding how this human foundation of education, which has always been that way, leads to sort of effective bureaucracy, right? Effective public administration of education. And by public, we mean there's some transparency. By public, we know, we trust that people are being honest about sort of the most critical or core drivers of success. Those things all matter quite a bit. And so, yeah, I do think it's important to focus on education, right? There's the soapbox moment for the day. Education needs to be reformed too. Maybe, folks. Give me one sec. Oh. Let's go, baby. What do you guys want to do? Those were my two stories for the day. Alaska, I think MP, I remember MP up in the chat, asked one of the harder questions. So I'm just going to recap, and yeah, we can end this stream or just hang out, talk for a minute. But I'm in no rush. But yeah, will anything come from this Alaska meeting? Is it just going to be clanging pots and pans? And folks, I don't think it's just going to be clanging pots and pans. I think there's serious issues to discuss. And if that leads to alignment, despite clanging pots and pans, and if that leads to peace, it's like, yeah, commit to the hard conversation, commit to just saying no to the stuff that isn't good for anyone, and build trust around that, right? If we're waiting for Superman, if we're waiting for Superwoman, if we're waiting for super people, we all have to be that person in the short term and the long term. We all have to be that person in the short term and the long term. And so instead of piling more garbage, trash, rubbish on this, instead of doing that, if you're not solution finding, if you're not finding priorities, we're not going to get anything out of it. And so Donald Trump is accountable to the American people for not cluttering up the geopolitical stage, for not lying to people anymore about the efficacy of his platform and the efficacy of his team around this stuff. The American people will support Donald Trump in whatever it is that we are supposed to be doing. It's always been this way. And so this blatant blanket lie that you have to be a snake oil salesman, you have to have some big vision that's not about politics to be successful in politics, this very small apartment Donald Trump's opened in American history, it's time to shut that down. It's time to focus on foundational business as usual. There's no other way around this. And then Gavin Newsom just being funny as hell. He's a troll, man. I think that's what we say. Yeah, and Cam makes a good point in chat. Yeah, there is, just to remember, you know, in society, we have this beautiful word, justice. Young people, what? There's 50 of us here. Should we be talking about justice? Is this something I can go out and do this week, next week? Justice? Who's written about this before, right? Who's read about it? I have. I've read about it quite a bit. So we have this term justice, which we think should capture some element of what we think of as moral. It's like this ought that exists. It's an ought, not an is. And you also have morality in there too, right? It just seems immoral, even if you're leading a large country. It would seem very moral for leaders like President Putin and President Trump to pursue peace in earnest and to really dedicate themselves to shaping institutions, shaping systems around what a peace deal looks like in light of the larger global order. To imagine that the world is this way, that you need to have China, you need to have the full UN Security Council, right? You need all BRICS and all the IMF bought into this plan. To act like we need more is complete folly. It's nonsense. It's BS a little bit. Yeah, get rid of this baby stuff out of chat, guys. These little short blurbs and stuff like this, these short sentences, I'll just start banning people. I appreciate that you guys are together having a conversation, but put a little something else more together with it, right? Maybe I'm being insulting, maybe that's not right, but you know, you're allowed to have, you know, it's not, you know, if you are living in Donald Trump's America and you thought that included this idea that now suddenly you as a person with a big old human brain is supposed to only have these short ideas, you know, who knows? Maybe it's a great day for short ideas, right? I'm having my cup of coffee. I'm going to go do silly athlete stuff. I'm going to go work out after this again. I got my run in this morning, and yeah, not trying to be too alpha, not trying to be too masculine or just some guy that likes to go running. But folks, you know, having a little bit of that longer term ability to think about these abstract ideas, think about politics, whatever it is, philosophy, it's all good stuff. Yeah, banning people creates an echo chamber. Is that true, Mike? Banning people creates an echo chamber. I don't know if that's true, but you know, yeah, it doesn't really. You know, if you are hanging out with, if you work at a company, if you're in a group of 20 people and they all are willing to do the same thing, instead of having a little integrity, a little honesty, a little work ethic, you know, then what you're doing is building an echo chamber, right? I'm not saying that you should go and fire people at your company or whatever, but you have to, Democrats are disgusting people. Hey, what's up, Blue Ocean? I love Blue Ocean stuff. Blue Ocean, that was an old business book. Yeah, an old liberalism. An old, what was it called? Blue Ocean Strategy, I think, is what this one was called. Blue Ocean Strategy. So, but it talks about how a Red Ocean strategy is about competition. Your pirate ships are running into each other. Blue Ocean Strategy is a different idea about building new things, innovation. Looks like we're getting some YouTube drama in the chat, guys. YouTube drama in the chat. Yeah. And don't listen to yahoos like me who ask people to do too much too fast, right? People know. See, this is the BS. This is the dishonesty of Trump's America, is people already know. And it's not Trump's America, but this is the dishonesty of the Donald Trump apartment that opened up called MAGA. Is that people already know what ethics are. People already know what moral behavior is like. And so it's on the one hand, you know, you should be able to identify and be honest about the things that you think you're doing that are already good, that you're doing well. And it's also sort of the case that everybody already knows that maybe the world just doesn't work. At some point, the world doesn't work exactly the way that anyone wants it to. Exactly the way the world anyone wants it to. And so just saying, well, look, I'm not taking a day off, but I'm just going to see what happens when I reduce my effort towards selfish or egotistical things. I'm going to reduce my effort towards things that I think I just want because I want them versus the things that I actually need to be able to do, right? Wants and needs. Wants and needs. And so if I go out and I think about what the group needs, if I think about what other people need, and I decide I'm going to commit, 1% of my time towards that, 1% of my time towards that kind of stuff, a little bit more, you at least start getting towards a point where you're not maybe talking about honesty, but you're talking about another area of reality, of social reality that wasn't there before. Another area of life, a different area of your brain working. Individualism is frowned upon when it comes to YouTube. I don't think so. Individualism is a good thing. You need a bigger microphone. A bigger microphone, folks. Yeah, I like this microphone a lot. I like this mic a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you, though, DLC 2112 DLC. I thought that was going to be a 117, a little Halo thing, a little 343 dig. Was not, but you don't not want suffering. You wanted working. You want. Can you guys cut it out? Can you guys please cut it out? Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. No winners. There's no winner. I'll make a ruling on that one. There's no winner. How do you unsubscribe? Here, Nelpar, I'll just hide you on the channel. There, you're gone. Now you're gone, my friend. I solved it for you. Leadership, folks. I like the artwork behind you. Thank you. That is, my grandpa did that painting. Those two were ones. Very lucky my friends gave me those ones for various birthday presents. There's my grandpa. There's a picture. And that other one is, I don't know. I think my mom got me that one. So do I think college loans should be forgiven? Yeah, I mean, I think people... Yeah, I think it's good that people understand finance and understand stuff like that. And I think it's good that people have, that feeling of stability and financial stability, I think is equally important to the way the system actually works. And so I think it's something that should at least be talked about. Yeah, I think it's something that should at least be talked about. And yeah, those types of discussions are a little more useful, I think, than I think it would be a more useful discussion to saying, look, Donald Trump has to decide between forgiving student loans or expanding either private debt exchanges or Maybe he thinks about doing, expanding, private exchanges that have some subsidized component or whatever it is, whatever the actuarial tables actually support. Like that would be a more useful conversation than saying we're going to send the military into Washington, D.C. That's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy, folks. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. So do I think that billionaires should not be able to buy politicians? Is that worse than students not paying back their loans, or better? Yeah, so that was largely what the Tea Party was about, was these publicly funded politicians. It's bad because when you control a narrative, you allow people to, okay, so maybe more granular is if there's a lie here and people are building based on the lie, maybe it doesn't matter that you lied in the first place, but it does matter that people are willing to latch onto that for their personal greed or something like that. Robin, no, why would you get your money back if you paid your loans back? I don't know what that comment's about even. I don't know what planet you're on. Different answer? Stretches of Casper. Let me see. I can look up channel activity. So, yeah, you can try that one again, my friend, if you want. You want to try a different chat message? You don't have to, but that is what that is about. So, cool. Hey, what's up, Andrea? Andrea LaRocco. Let others have what you didn't have. What you don't get. Let others have what you don't get. Jesus told a story about workers whining to the boss that people who came in during the afternoon got paid for the whole day. His answer was, shut up, you got yours. Yeah, that's not accurate at all either, Julian Fry. I love these Christian narratives. Don't get me wrong. If we're doing politics, okay, fine. Cool. But that, to me, that's a story that Jesus is saying, I'm not actually smart enough to manage the complexity of all this stuff. I can't. I'm asking someone else to work for me to solve these complex challenges. And that's inconsistent and incoherent. Well, no, it's not. No, it's not. Saying that someone is working in an environment where they are looking for a bumper sticker for a solution, right? Or saying that they are, saying that we're allowed to, so what is the actual reason when we use our own subjective emotions, our own subjective desires, our own subjective view of what's best or most moral for a society versus a sort of agreed upon or actually contemplated, thought about, maybe not objective, but a sort of hard fought, a difficult truth to find about how we move forward together, And so it's one of those really funny things where it's like, yeah, I want everything to be different, or I want it to get worse, and I'm willing to, just to sort of snuggle into place here, I'm willing to lie about it, or I'm willing to talk over someone else. That doesn't make sense to me, right? That doesn't make sense to me. It's not factoring in what's possible. It's saying no. It's saying no to experience. It's saying no to intelligence. It's saying no to shutting up and being productive, actually productive for 10 seconds, right? Finding something that you can do that in 10 seconds or 10 minutes is still going to be around. And it's like, okay, well, if I ran out of those, then how do I fix that? Whatever. I don't want to do. 99% of the time, 99% of people don't do anything that is relevant at all. 99% of the time, 99% of people just do what's expected. And so that should be empowering, because that should be one of those empowering things, because if it is the case that you're in the 1%, you're in the 1% because of 1% of your time, 1% of your time or effort. Why don't billionaires pay their fair share of taxes? Because they own both parties. Yeah, meritocracies. Yeah, meritocracies are cool. Asking what people need is also cool. I believe there is a time and a place for people to do meritocratic things. Yeah. I know myself very well. Yes, I already told you. Appreciate it. How is it? They're following the tax law. Hey, what's up, Roomy Bulldogs? Poor people make war. What's up, Lanza Adam? Good to see you. Who decides what's fair? Robin Wyckoff is a pharmacist. Cool. Me too. No, I do have friends that are pharmacists, though. I have a number of friends that are pharmacists. IRL pharmacists, and not pharmacists, farm techs, whatever. Hey, what's up, Zippity Doodah? That's cool. If you guys ever have the chance to go down Splash Mountain, you'll hear Zippity Doodah. Zippity Doodah, zippity day. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, it's very cool. For a psycho everyday party. I don't know exactly what that means, but hopefully you're well. Hopefully you're doing well. Billionaires help make the tax law. Trump cut enforcement for tax cheats. Listening and learning. Just going to go ahead and take you out of the channel. We'll see ya, Andrew Wilson Volleyball. Have a good one. That was easy. Yeah, I don't really have anything else. I don't want to do self-help stuff. I don't know any of you, right? This is like very classic millennial sort of, hello, my name is Nathan Swift. I go by Duck Online. I don't know you. I don't know any of you. You guys know me as much as I tell you about myself. I try and be honest. I try and be transparent and stuff like that. But we're not going to get into a discussion where, like, in all honesty, like, I would recommend go walk for 5 minutes. Go walk for 5 minutes. Try and eat 10% healthier for one meal today or something like that. Do something 10% harder if you have to. Read something. Go to a new subreddit, or go to a new YouTube channel, or mix up the routine 10% to do something that's 10% more about someone else. So we're not going to do self-help stuff. I covered the 2 stories that I had. If you guys want to subscribe, I appreciate it. I hope it's a lot of fun on the channel. I want to do more open panel stuff, more stuff on PC format as well. And the partisan stuff. Everybody's got to be a wrecking ball. I don't know why we have to run into each other like this, but we're going to do that. We'll see you. What was that username? White man from town. We'll see ya. You're off the channel, my friend. Have a good one. Peace. My friend's from Boston. He's from Boston, I think. And now he's gone. He's back in Boston. Nice brown suit. No? Nope. Is that what that is? Nope. Good to see you, Saj. Is this a communist revolutionary YouTube channel? I've read Barks. I don't know, what year is it, Zippity Doodah? Can you tell me what year it is? If you don't tell me what year it is in chat, I'm going to also kick you off the channel. Maybe we'll just sit here for the next 30 minutes banning people. You guys know me. We've read this book in good faith on the channel. We have steelmanned and strongmanned Donald Trump's arguments. So Zippity Doodah, you have about 10 seconds to tell me what year it is. If you can tell me in chat what year it is, you can stay. If not, I'm going to kick you as well. You can still subscribe and come to the streams and just listen, but you're not going to be in chat anymore. So here, we'll read this paragraph and then, yeah, you can make that choice. These projects put people to work, not just the people doing the work, but also the manufacturers, the suppliers, the designers, and yes, even the lawyers. The Senate Budget Committee estimates that rebuilding America will create 13 million jobs. That's not true. All right. We'll see you, Zippity Doodah. Thanks for the great attitude. Thanks for showing everyone that. Yeah. If you guys want to do anything else, I'm going to end this. I'm going to end this, right? Cool. Thanks, everybody. Define rebuilding. Great question. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think of a lot of stuff. It's like, how do you rebuild? So here's something you can't rebuild. Arizona's got a bunch of copper mines, a bunch of like mineral mines and stuff, you know, in areas like Globe and Kingman. You can't rebuild the fact that, well, for whatever reason, you have this major city, Phoenix, and in the surrounding areas, you have just, that's where the minerals are. That's where things that we mine are. Maybe you can change the sort of the breadth and scope of the demand and desire to sort of center yourself around certain things. Maybe you can change the meaning of, like, you know, a single transaction or something like that, right? You can still do like Austrian economics and be a little future oriented. But rebuilding the United States isn't about 13 million jobs. If you actually meant that and honest, and you thought about what it meant to rebuild America and the type of person that says that with 13 million jobs next to it, it's crazy.